Hi, this is Donna. Welcome to DD Paper Crafts. In today's video, we're going to be making this grandfather clock style gift box, keepsake box combination. I'll turn it this way so you can see the size. This is just over 12 inches long. The project, as you can see, I've made for a birth of a new baby, but I think you could certainly have it for any special occasion or for a wedding, for example. The piece is made up of a box at the top, which is 4 inches tall by 3 inches by 3 inches, and this opens from the top like so. This is adhered to a second box, which is 5 inches by 3 inches by 3 inches. And I did initially have a door in the back, which I then chose not to utilise. I've used this for the central element for display purposes only. And then at the bottom, we have another box, which is 3 inches by 3 inches by 3 inches. And this is accessed by a door at the back like so. Each of the boxes are very simple to put together. It would be a relatively easy box to resize to suit your needs. You obviously just need to make sure that the width and the depth of each of the boxes are the same. The height of each of the boxes can be whatever you so choose. And any of the elements on the outside where we can seal how the boxes are added together, again, you can make those whatever depth you so wish to suit the look that you're trying to achieve. So without further ado, let's put this project together. For the top box, you'll need 2 pieces. The first one is 10 inches by 5 inches, and along the 10-inch side, score at half, 3.5, 6.5, and 9.5. Rotate, and along the 5-inch side, score at half and 4.5. The second piece for the top box is 11 inches by 3 inches, and this is scored at 1/2 inch, 3.5, 7.5, and 10.5. Fold and burnish both of the pieces. We'll work on the largest piece. We'll have the piece in a landscape orientation, and we're going to cut up each of the score lines within the 1/2 inch section to the first horizontal score line. Rotate, repeat on the short side. Rotate and move back to the long side. Rotate and do the same on the second short side. From either the top or the bottom of the central panel, you want to remove one of the sections. I'm going to fold these top and bottom tabs under and cut along the score line to remove this central tab, and then I'm going to take a wedge from each of the remaining glue tabs. So this is how this piece looks. Take your second piece. This is going to slot down inside the box. I'm going to round off the corners. This is personal preference. And then I'm going to fold under this end tab, and using my circle punch, I'm just going to punch through the 2 pieces of cardstock just to add a little notch in, so that you can then get your finger in to get the box open. What's going to happen is this portion is going to stand up like so, and then this section is going to come around, as it were. This is going to be the lid of the box, and then this piece is going to be adhered at the back and at the base. I'm going to add tape onto this 2 side sections here and onto each of these sections. I'll start by removing the backing from the base pieces. That's going to sit on there like so. Make sure you get everything nice and square. Obviously it is easier with wet glue because you do get that element of manoeuvrability that you don't get with tape. And now I can remove the backing from the back section of the box. Stick one side down, and then I can manoeuvre the second side into place. That will come over and slot in like so. That's the top element of our box, and this is the one which I will add the clock faces to. For the base box, again, you'll need two pieces. The first piece is 9 by 4, and this is scored at 3 and 6 on the long side, and on the short side it's scored at 1/2 and 3 1/2. The second piece is 9 by 4. This is scored at 3 and 6 on the long side, and on the short side it's scored at 1/2 and 3 1/2. What I've done on the reverse of the cardstock, in the middle 3-inch section, I've drawn a square which is 3/8 of an inch away from the score line. So that's these 3 lines here. So I had a square made up of 4 pencil lines, 3/8 of an inch in from the score line. And then on the left hand side, I scored between the two, flipped the piece over, and then went over the score line again. So that's given me a score line on what will be the left hand side of the box, and then on the reverse I've got my 3 pencil lines marked. Fold and burnish both of the pieces. The way this box is going to come together is similar to the first box that we made, in that one piece is going to wrap around another piece. We'll start with the piece without the extra score line and markings, and we're going to create our glue tab simply by cutting up each of the score lines to the horizontal, and then take a wedge from the ends of each of these glue tabs. That's our first piece. On the second piece, which has got the extra score line, again, I'm going to cut up each of the verticals to the horizontal. I'm going to completely remove these side tabs, left and right, from the top and the bottom squares. And then I'm going to take my craft knife and ruler and cut along the pencil lines that we made earlier on 3 sides only. So I'm cutting a door into the back of the box, like so. Fold back along the score line and just burnish so that your door does open. And then I'm going to use my circle punch again and just cut a very small notch in here. Of course, you could add something on to make it look like a handle. Just needs to be big enough to get your fingernail in, really, like so. And now I'm going to add tape onto these 3 sections, and what I do for speed with tape is I just run the tape all the way along, and then I go in and just cut away the V in the middle. There's no advantage to it other than speed. It means I'm not sitting there cutting various angles. Let's do the same at this end. I'm also going to add my tape onto this piece at the same time. I'm going to line up this side first, pull this side around, and then pull this side around, like so. So that's it like that. For the middle display box, you'll need a piece of card which is 11 by 3, and this is scored at 3 and 8. And again, in the middle section, I've marked 3/8 of an inch in from the edge of the cardstock, and then on what is the left hand side, I've scored between the two score lines, and then I flipped the piece over and scored again. I'm going to create a door section exactly the same way as we've created the door in the bottom box. For the front of the display section, you'll need a piece of acetate which is 10 by 6. Along the 10-inch side, score at half, 3.5, 6.5 and 9.5, and on the 6-inch side, score at half and 5.5. So we'll prepare this piece first. I'm going to fold and burnish. Again, I'm going to use my craft knife and ruler to cut along 3 of the pencil lines. Again, my door is going to open from the same side as the box, which is going to be underneath it. Then I'm just going to add a small notch into that so that you can get that open. So for the acetate section, you want to fold and burnish along the long score lines, and then with the 2 in the middle section, I'm just going to gently burnish those with my fingers because I don't want a definite defined white strip that you sometimes get with acetate, but obviously that's your personal choice, so that's not too bad. I'm now going to cut up each of the score lines up to the long horizontal. Do that all the way round, so that will remove this square at this end. And then I'm going to take a wedge from the ends of each of the tabs. Before you do anything, you will probably need to trim down these tabs at the top and the bottom. You don't want those to run within the gap that you've cut for the door. So I'm going to cut those down now to approximately 1/4, 3/8 of an inch. I felt that it was easier to score for the longer tab on the acetate, burnish, and then cut the excess away rather than cut them to size normally, because you're just trying to fold over this small piece. So what's going to happen is this is obviously going to sit in there like so, come across the back and will come over the top. Now I want as much of the glue tab to be hidden as possible. So these 2 glue tabs at the back will be visible, but when I come to glue this into place, I'm going to glue these tabs onto the underside of the bottom and on the top of the top, so that the glue tabs are then not visible inside the box. But before I do any of that, of the sticking together, I'm going to work on my display element within this piece here. So I'm going to get as much of this element planned out and created as possible, because once I stick the base into place, my access is either going to be through the door or I'm going to have to come in through the top, add that in, and then add the top together. I've decorated the inside of the display box system. I did in the end because I wanted to maximize the display element that I have. I did stick my pattern paper completely over the door. The next stage is we're going to glue all of the boxes together. This is the base cube, so this is the 3x3 box. This has got the door in the back. So that is obviously going to sit at the bottom like so. And then this is the 4x3 box, that's going to sit on the top like so. So the first thing I'm going to do is just glue all of those together. I will add red liner tape on top of the acetate sections, and then I will glue in the middle. Doesn't matter what order you add the boxes in. So let's take the tape off of this. Is the base of the central box. So this is the back, so this is the side with the door in it. So I'm going to put construction glue in the middle, try and get the sides lined up, try and get it square all the way around, and then I'm going to do the same at the other end. The 3 boxes are now secured in place. I'm now going to start phase 1 of the box decoration, and you can change up any of these elements as you so wish, obviously. I've started off by cutting 8 pieces of cardstock, which are 2 3/4 of an inch by 1/2 inch. And I've marked across the short side at 1/4 inch. I'm going to use the 1/4 inch guide pencil mark to sit where one box sits on top of another, like so. There'll be one on each side where the top box meets the middle box, and one on each side where the middle box meets the base box. They are now stuck in place, and then I have 4 pieces which are 1/2 inch wide. These are actually the length of an A4 sheet of cardstock, so these are 11 5/8. You could cut these from US letter. It will just mean when we cut the piece after these, you'll need to make that slightly wider. This is 1/2 inch wide, and I've scored 1/4 inch, but again, you could make this as wide as you so wish. This is going to line up with the bottom of the box. Make sure the corner sits on the corner of the boxes. You should find that your strips fit underneath, as that does. So I've got one of those per corner, so I'm going to add those on next. I then have some ribbon. This is 5/8 of an inch wide. I'm going to wrap this around the top, so it's going to enclose the top of these. If you were cutting a piece of cardstock, I would cut one piece which is 10.5 inches long by whatever depth you want for this piece up here, depending on whether you used A4 or US letter. So that will wrap from this side, and this side, and then you'll have 2 glue tabs at the back. And then I would cut another piece which is 3 inches long by whatever depth, and that will stick on the back across the back piece. But as I say, I'm going to use the ribbon. I'm going to add that on now. Once I'd stuck this ribbon on the top, I did realise that that's then going to be too wide for this door to open. So I have another blue ribbon which works just as well. This is 3/8 of an inch wide, and I'm going to stick that around the bottom as I've done the ribbon at the top. Okay, that's the ribbon added to the base. I've got my ribbon on the top. I've got all my additional pieces in. Now I'm going to go ahead and complete the rest of the decoration on the cloth. I've added decorative paper on the bottom panels on 3 sides. I've added decorative panels across the back, and obviously that has now covered where the door was originally going to be. I've covered the back of the door and added one of the chipboard elements, and I can use that to actually open the door. So we've got our gift box at the bottom. I've added a topper to the top, our gift box at the top, and then we have our display element in the centre. I've added a clock face to the front, and my thought process was I will eventually have a clock face on all 3 sides. One will indicate the date of birth, and I would, for instance, have the date stamped in here on a plaque, as it were. One will be the time, a clock face to indicate the time, set to the time of birth, and that will have a little element here. And then another clock face, which I will set to the weight, and then that will have confirmation here. I've got room at the bottom to add the baby's name if I so wish, and overall I'm really happy with how this has come out. As I said at the beginning, I think it would make a lovely style for any big occasion, whether it be a big birthday or maybe do it on a much grander, much bigger scale for a wedding. So here we have today's project. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel. And until next time, thanks for watching.